Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Courageous Love Show. And tonight we're going to be talking about why love isn't all you need and how to bring back that loving feeling. I am Paul Sterling. I am a relationship and intimacy coach, and I am here on the west coast of California. And I am joined by Candace, who is on the east coast and also a love and intimacy coach. And so tonight we're going to dive into this tough topic. And what I want you to do is grab a pen, a pencil, pen, paper, pencil, whatever you want. Interact with us, or type on your keyboard. But this is going to be interactive, and this is for people who are serious about their relationship. This is, I try to dive deep into this. I've been doing it for 25 years, over 25 years. Started years ago with, learning from Tony Robbins, ended up working for him. And it's been a long journey. And I went through 1 divorce and 4 broken engagements as I was in the learning curve. So I am now the author of this book, Argue Less, Love More. At the end of this, I will tell you how you can actually get a copy for free. You can get a copy for $19.97 if you go on Amazon. And if you want, you can get one for free. And anyway, Candace, how did you end up becoming a love coach? And are you ready to help these people really understand the keys here? So actually, before you answer that, I want to ask people, and this is interactive, so comments, all the rest of this, but there's 3 areas we're going to talk about tonight. If you feel unheard in your relationship, if you feel unloved, and if you feel unsafe. And unsafe doesn't just mean physically unsafe. Do you think that you're going to be hurt or abused? But do you feel emotionally unsafe? Can you share what's alive in you? Do you feel like you need to protect yourself? Do you need to censor what you say in your relationship? So we're going to dive into unheard, unloved, and unsafe. So Candace, how did you get here?
It's really interesting. It's like you just told my story as you were saying that. Initially I feel like I came into the world of wanting to learn about relationships for myself because I chronically felt unheard, unloved, and unsafe. It didn't matter who I was with. That was my operating system, as you'll get into later, the relationship operating system imagining. And so I started for me personally, and then it just evolved into really wanting to help others and like seeing relationships are everything. Like it's everything we do. It's not just who we choose romantically. And so those feelings of unheard, unseen, unsafe, it didn't just impact romantic relationships. It was every relationship. So yeah.
So what I want to dive into is ask people as we're commenting back and forth, we're communicating back and forth. I'd love to hear your comments. Where are you listening in from? And I can read a lot of your comments. Some I can't, because this gets streamed out to a lot of different places at once around the world. So I will go through. If I can't see your comments here, and some of you have to allow StreamYard to let your comments come through. That I don't know exactly why that is, but they need to click on allow the comments to show on screen so we can see them. But we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to interact with you. One person is coming in from La Mesa, California. So anyway, let's dive in. We'd love to hear which one of those resonated with you most, the unheard, unloved, or unsafe one in relationships. And like Candace said, for me, I'm going to be selfish. It's all 3. I got them all. So And then we're also hearing from New Jersey. Thank you, Letitia from New Jersey. Okay, here we go. Now, this is, well, if you think about it, keeping love alive, and Candace, I have my bell curve up there, the granted gratitude bell curve, so you know. And keeping love alive is somewhat simple and not easy at all. So it's like, if you think about it, if you want to lose weight and get in shape, it's really simple. Eat less, eat better, exercise more. Now, this is for people without medical problems and challenges. I know there's exceptions, but for most of us, it's simple. Eat less, eat better, exercise more. If you want to have a relationship, keep it alive, what you need to do is stay grateful and make it easy to win, hard to lose. And I've talked to people, and it's like it gets better and better. If you want to screw up a relationship, you start taking each other for granted, and you make it hard to win, easy to lose, and eventually you hit what I call the PONR, the point of no return. And when people leave the relationship, there's three parts that leave the relationship. Then I'm going to bounce to you, Candace. Oh, and somebody's saying drink more water. Yes. So that would be drink more water, definitely is in there. But all right. So when we start to take each other for granted, it starts the downward spiral, and we end up at the point of no return. And what happens is we leave mentally, we leave emotionally, and the last thing we do is we leave physically. But a lot of times we're emotionally out the door and mentally out the door before we're physically out the door. And what happens sometimes is our partner is surprised. They go, what the hell happened? I had one guy call me. They'd been married 20 or 25 years, I forget which. He came home, he was shocked because his wife had packed up and cleaned out the house. He was at work, he had no idea. All of the signals, he missed all the signals. Women are signaling a lot of the time, and men are missing it. And sometimes it's reverse. Men are signaling, women are missing it. So Candace, what do you want to say about gratitude, point of no return, win, easy to win, hard to lose, any of that?
The first thing that came to me was, in the beginning, before the show, we were talking about communication and the challenges around that and the catch-22. I was just sitting here and reminded, because I'm extremely emotionally unavailable right now, but I want, I'm still like wanting things, And so I'm having to navigate this. And like, I was with someone today, and I think it's so important to like say this stuff out loud to the people you're with. Like I said to the person I was with today, like, if it appears or feels like I'm not totally present with you, I just want to let you know that's probably spot on. It's not you, it's me. I'm sorry, like I want to be here, but there's something pulling me.
Yeah, and part of that's really a key thing. We're not going to talk about it today, but you can watch some of the past videos and stuff like that, because Candace nailed the inner circle. The inner circle of what makes relationships work is availability, capability, willingness. Everything that I teach and have taught for years starts with that inner part. Am I physically, emotionally, mentally available? Am I capable to clear up the past, connect and get present, and create possibilities for the future? God, we got a lot of background noise. Is that?
So I live in New Hampshire right now, and they love fireworks here.
Is that what that is? It's firework. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Okay. I
I'm
thought
gonna
that you had
go
big
shut the
mouths.
window in this room, see if it helps.
No, no, no. Just, it's okay.
Okay.
We'll go for it.
Oh.
All right. So, can people relate to this? Can you relate to that beginning of the relationship where it's easy to win? You bring home a rock and your partner goes like, "Oh my God, he brought me a rock. I can't." You should call up your friends. He brought me a rock. You know, Later on, it's like, he brings home a diamond and it's the wrong size. Or whatever it is, and it goes both ways. It goes both ways. So it's the idea is to keep it alive. We've got to learn how to stay in a state of gratitude. So we're going to look at some changes that are happening in the world right now. And I wanted to have fancy pictures for these changes, but I don't. But these are really important changes. Now, back in 1844, women got the right to own property. And when you got to own property, prosperity started to become available. Now, it took a long time for women to be able to borrow money without their husband signing. It wasn't like it was an instant. And I'm going to explain why this is important as we move forward. So, own property, 19, August 18th, 1920, the right to vote. So the right to vote gave women power. And why this is all important is we're watching the power differential, because in the early days, men had a lot of the power and women didn't in relationships. So women's expectations were a lot lower than they are today. In the 60s, we got birth control, and women could have sex without the worry of getting pregnant and the danger of getting pregnant. And in the 70s, we moved into the information age. And what the information age did is in the Stone Age, might makes right. And women needed men needed a tribe just to survive. And in the information age, information is a great equalizer. And women and men are on the same playing field right now. And the only thing that's constant as we move into year 2021 is change. Wasn't that long ago? It was, there was a show out that Father Knows Best. And if somebody tried to put Father Knows Best out now, it would get laughed off of the TV, because it was all about everybody was subservient to the dad. And that has really changed. So, Candace, what do you see as the change with the right to own property and vote and birth control and information age? What's changing in the world of relationships right now that people need to pay attention to?
So first I want to just out myself. I am politically and historically challenged. But on an energetic and spiritual, I'm kind of woo woo. Um, so what I'm hearing, and when I feel that in my body as a woman, because I'm hearing there's been a lot of shifts as far as the women getting power. So what may that feel like to the men? Do they feel like they're losing power even though nothing's being taken? Um, there's a shift. And then our DNA, I feel like there's this societal, there's the historical, and the lineage. There's many people we're going to relate to that still have these relationship operating systems, that this is the way things are, you know? Um, and yeah, things are very, very different, and I love and appreciate it, but I also deeply empathize um how challenging this shift can be. And even me, so for me, God, I get lost in my masculine. Like, I think my mother wore leather and jeans and swore and just they're so masculine. Um, and I took that on. And for me personally, there's some benefits to that, but I've also found that it has created some challenges in relating to the masculine, both externally and in my own capacity to enjoy being a woman.
Yeah, somebody's saying, "Yikes! It's all the changes here." And what's changing is the rules, the roles, the rewards, the responsibilities. It's all now up for grabs. You can have a gay relationship, a straight relationship, a lesbian relationship. You can be polyamorous. You can, like, it's changing a lot. And what has to happen is when you need a new set of tools. It's like you used to have a phone that plugged into the wall. And what did the phone do? It did one thing. Now I have this phone in front of me in my hand. I'm waving my phone. You can't see it, but I'm waving my phone here. Anyway, my phone does internet and texting and photographs, and it actually calls people too. And there's probably a whole long list of things that it does. So what has to happen in relationships, it used to be very basic, like a phone hooked up to the wall. Now it's changed. And we expect women to not only be, at one point, because of your gender, there was a role that you had. You raised the kids, you had the kids, you cleaned the house, you cooked, and that was it. And then what happened is now moved into the workplace. And what we expect from men is different and what we expect from women. And it's all up for grabs. And what you need is you need new tools, or you need to upgrade your tools. So let's dive into that. Hopefully this is making sense to people. This is not like a light and fluffy conversation. This is like the world is changing. Winter is coming, or summer, depends on what it is. But the world is changing, and if you don't adapt to it, it will run over you. It doesn't care whether you adapt to it or not. So how are we doing? Well, 875,000 to 1 million people every year get a divorce right now. That's every 31 to 36 seconds. So let's see, 18 minutes. That means about 30 people have gotten a divorce since we've started this call. And here's a comment that just came in that said, basically, people can't adjust. They don't know the way adjust to this evolution that's happening. Yes, an evolution is happening right now. Thank you for that, Letitia. And it is, someone else is saying US or worldwide. It's heavily led in the US and throughout Europe. And there's still some countries that are definitely resisting this. And women don't have a lot of the rights that they do here. And men are trying to keep women suppressed because we don't know how to deal with this. And fear comes up. And it's so interesting. So let's take a look here. Candace, I've got the exciting, requested, expected slide up. And this is my quick story on this to get people dove into this. I bought a BMW many years ago. It was a 2002 TII. That's not the year I bought it. That's the model the car was. And when I got that car, it's the first car that I had ever seen that had intermittent windshield wipers. And it was really exciting to me. And if you sat in my car for more than 2 minutes, I showed you my intermittent windshield wiper. They go, watch, wait. No, boom, boom. Now they're going to come again. Boom, boom. And then what happens? See, in the world, this is what happens to human beings. In the beginning, it's exciting. So there were things like men who could talk about their feelings and needs. That's exciting. Women who own their sexuality. That was exciting. Men who know what to do in bed. Exciting. Now it gets to be the next level. is like it gets requested. Do you have those windshield wipers? Are you able to talk about your feelings and needs? Do you have emotional IQ? And then right now, if you bought a Kia, like the cheapest Kia, it is expected that they have those windshield wipers. And in relationships, it's moving from exciting to talk about feeling needs to requested to talk about feelings and needs to being expected. So any comments on that one, Candace?
The word is the way we're using the word expected has a mild negative connotation. And so there is that, like, the unspoken expectations. But I feel like there is also that place. And this is what I think the evolution is too. Like, with both, I think everyone, is starting to come to a place of recognizing that they have a right to have expectations. Like, I expect you to not smack me in the face. That's just a standard. I'd really like that.
Wait, before you go further on that,
yeah.
I taught in prison for 8.5 years. And I worked with minimum to maximum security in men's side, women's side. You say that, and a lot of people, and it's true, you have that right, and violence is not okay. And I would be talking to a whole group of female prisoners, and they didn't even know that that was a possibility, to be in a relationship where somebody isn't violent, doesn't hit you. And that's part of the reason I went in. I went in, and it's like, to me, it's a feminist issue, that teaching in prison, because when men are violent, women pay the price. Women and children pay the price. And unless we give men a better tool to express their pain and upset and their anger, they go back to violence. And so I went in to rather than punish them into better behavior, I wanted to teach them better tools, because that's what if we want a better relationship, we need better tools. Does that make sense, Candace? Yeah. So we're going to look at those 3 areas, and I'm going to explain the chart to my co-leader here. So it's a triangle, and on the left side, it's if you feel unheard. And I'm dyslexic, grammatically impaired, spelling errors. They're going to be me writing in public. I know this is going to sound really ridiculous, but me writing in public, I can break out in a sweat. So let's see how we do. So unheard, unloved, and unsafe. So the unheard part, do you want to dive into that at all, Candace? What it feels like to be unheard?
Being interrupted, being hung up on, having a topic be avoided. These are certain experiences that can bring up that unheard feeling. And for me, I don't do well with feeling unheard. Yeah, I usually don't last too long feeling unheard before I make myself heard.
and
I try nicely.
And see that you nailed it right there. I'm going to actually bring up the cycle here. This is what happens. And I've got these pictures. So the first one is if you don't feel heard, understood, and valued. And I have pictures of a couple that's arguing. And by the way, Candace is blind, so I'm explaining things to her. Some of the people know, some of them don't. I'm trying to keep her included as my partner in the show here. So if people wonder why I'm explaining pictures. So if you don't feel heard, understood, and valued, what do? Typically, you try harder and harder. Candace, you just did it. You know, what do? We get louder and we say it 10 different ways and we try harder and harder. And somewhere along the line, we end up tripping each other's triggers. And what does that lead to? Connection and intimacy and trust? No, it leads to constant conflicts, eroding trust, losing intimacy. And it can take days, it can take weeks, it can take months, or it can put you to PONR, point of no return. So anything you want to say about that, Candace?
I was thinking of like what's the word? One thing impacts another, you know, like,
yes.
So if I'm feeling unheard and I go and make myself heard, I may create unsafety. You know,
yes.
It's just, yeah. Without acknowledging, it's like you have to, like you said, it's that the three-legged stool in essence.
Yeah. And so we get unheard, then we the harder we try, the more we trigger each other, and things end up getting avoided and put on the shelf, and communication gets harder and harder. And so what we're trying to do, what we want is we want a solution that causes people to lean in versus lean out. And so lean in gets connection, compassion, cooperation. Lean out, resistance, resentment, regret. So what are some of the things, Candace, for you that cause you to lean in? And before you answer, as you're getting to answer, people in the world of the Facebook world and YouTube and every place you're listening, what causes you to lean in, to want to hear your partner, to want to be part of this conversation? So if you could just type in what causes you to lean in. And then, Candace, I'm going back to you. Bounce. What causes you to lean into a conversation?
When I'm hearing a genuine curiosity versus a judgment. When it feels like a level playing field, like we're coming at it from the place of, no good, bad, right, wrong. It just opens things up. Yeah.
What causes lean in for me is if it feels like they're giving me empathy, that they want to know what's going on for me, that they're not just trying to prove their point. So, and if I feel valued,
emotions, like, so yeah, I'm blind. And one of the things with me as a blind person, like, I can tell when someone is not really sharing and they're hiding their emotions. If somebody's hiding their emotions, I don't feel like I can lean in. If somebody is crying and like really showing up emotionally, I'm like, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And what you just described is, you know, that inner circle we talked about earlier: availability, capability, willingness. Willingness, there's three parts to willingness. Are they willing to be courageous, vulnerable, and compassionate? And Brene Brown talks a lot about that. But it's like, if they're willing to lead with vulnerability, if they're asking me to be vulnerable and they're leading with their vulnerability, I'm very interested in leaning in. If they're psychoanalyzing me, trying to figure out what's wrong with me and why I'm bad, stupid, and wrong, I'm not that interested. So let's switch over. So people, if you tell us what causes you to lean in, that's awesome. And Michael just asked a question here saying, how can I find true love? Well, truth love. Truth love. I don't know if that's a misspelling or if that's a different way of looking at it. But one of the ways is to attract it by building these skills that we're talking about. You know, if you want true love, you've got to be a great lover. If you want a remarkable relationship, you have to have remarkable relationship skills. So what causes you to lean in, people, if you could write that. The second thing, and
I live
you
in the
got
city.
noisy neighbors, Candace. Anyway, they're communicating. They're trying to communicate here. So what causes you to lean out? What basically causes you to move into that area of resistance, resentment, regret? That the feelings we, or the reaction we typically want to avoid. We avoid wanting to create resistance, resentment, regret. I can start. Any statements where, like, you are, you should, you have to, anything that insinuates bad, stupid, wrong, anything that feels like an attack or defensiveness kind of shuts me down, and I get resistant and resentful, or anything that feels like force, where I'm being pushed into or backed into a corner. I find that I get resistant during that. And by the way, the hub of almost everything important in your relationship all starts with and ends with communication. So it's really important to know how to get your partner to want to cooperate, connect, be compassionate. It's also really important to know what triggers your partner and causes them to be resistant, resentful, and regret. Like, you can force your kids to do things. You can use some force and manipulation to get your partner to do things, and then you end up regretting it. So anything on the resistance, resentment, regret side?
The thing that's coming through from you now is like, some of us, there was a time in my life when I didn't know any of this, lean in, lean out, these terms, as well as like, I wouldn't be able to feel in my body what was happening. I just want to like say to everyone out there, you will notice in your body, even if you can't acknowledge it emotionally, your physical body will start to lean out. And if your physical body is doing that, it's like sometimes we want to force ourselves to not hurt somebody, or like, oh, we have to show up. Maybe we should honor that and take a break until we're ready to, where we feel that pull back in. Yeah, sort of forcing it, like we we're talking about trying to force communication.
Yeah. So if you look at it, if it goes right, here's what happens if it goes right. If you get it right, when you speak, and again, this is one of my diagrams, Candace, with 5 different couples, but if you speak with courage, compassion, and curiosity, you can get to the place where both people feel heard, understood, and valued. And I'm going to stop there for a second. What would it be like in your relationship if both of you could feel heard, understood, and valued, even if you disagreed? Like, in my family growing up, it was work just to be heard. And then to be understood was almost impossible, and to feel valued, like sarcasm. My dad used to say, the best defense is a strong offense. And I learned very offensive communication growing up. And when I went through 1 divorce, 4 broken engagements, that first marriage, man, I could hold a grudge for a week or 2 weeks. I was going to punish my partner into better behavior by withholding love, emotion, affection, letting them know how bad, stupid, and wrong they are. And it's embarrassing for me to say it now, but I say it because if I can get this, it's a learned skill. I did not grow up with it. I did not have this in my family. It was something I chose to learn. Anything on that, Candace?
Um, yeah, yeah, I was thinking about that place of self-responsibility, really looking at ourselves first, are we feeling unheard, unsafe, unloved, and see where it's coming from. Because, when I said at the beginning how I was chronically all three of these things, especially around unheard, that was a big one where I was very much responsible. I wasn't speaking up, so it wasn't, so it's really, yeah.
So wait a second. I want to be careful of that. As a kid, part of the reason that you weren't speaking up, now I wasn't there, I'm going to speak for myself. Part of the reason I didn't speak up because it was unsafe.
Yeah, I was trained. And that's the other piece. Like,
Exactly.
this is how I took care of myself. So in order for me to be safe, I keep my stuff to myself. Like, yeah, yep.
Yeah,
but then my needs don't get met.
Right, and then we get stuck in. That's why it's like this catch-22, and it's a spiral. And Letitia's saying she learned defensive communication. Yeah, I was there, Dad, as an alcoholic, and he had a really tough childhood. So it's not like I'm blaming it all on him. He was doing the best he could, and he didn't do that in that area. In other areas, he did amazing. But when it came to communication and vulnerability, he was not that good at it, and neither was I. But here's what happens when you get it right. I'm back to showing that slide. We speak with courage, compassion, and curiosity. Both people feel heard, understood, and valued. And I want people to feel what that would feel like. That is a really unique thing. And when you have that in a relationship, you feel confident and know how to repair, because almost every relationship has upsets, misunderstandings, conflicts. We say stupid stuff at times and we hurt each other's feelings. But if you know how to repair, that makes a huge difference, and it builds trust and intimacy. And intimacy, trust is a side effect of keeping agreements, behaving in respecting each other's boundaries. And people complain about intimacy. Intimacy is the side effect. If you don't trust somebody, if you feel unheard and you feel unloved and you feel unsafe, the last thing you want to do is have sex with that person. So a lot of times I've worked with couples that haven't been intimate for 4 and 5 years because the issues haven't been addressed. So if you know how to do this, you build the intimacy and you can rebound from upsets rather than in weeks or months. You can do it in minutes. Anything on that one, Candace?
I've been working in this field now for like about 8-ish years. And when you shared what you just said about people that don't get to experience intimacy, I just got like a flash of all the many people that have walked through these doors just dying for love and touch and connection, but not actually pursuing it within their relationship. They just kind of gave up on the relationship.
Right.
Sad.
It is so sad. And it's like going to we said unheard, unloved, unsafe. The unloved part is if you don't treat my needs as precious, I'm unseparable. I don't know if that's even a word, unseparable from my needs. If you treat my needs as precious, you're treating me as precious. It's like if you look at it with women and their children, if you don't treat their children as precious, they'll never think that they're precious, because their children, it's a reflection, it's part of who they are. And if you are abusive to their children, you're abusing that woman. and the man too, but the women tend to have even more of a deep connection at times. So if you don't treat my needs as precious, I don't think I'm precious, and I'll feel unloved. If you want somebody to feel loved, try to figure out what their precious needs are. So I'm going to show you two more things about communication, then we're going to bounce back to the original triangle. Communication, simple, not easy, what people want. And I have my triangle here. I do lots of different triangles, but when we're communicating, we want to be heard, understood, and valued. It sounds simple. It's not. It's really, really challenging because we get triggered. We want to get defensive. There's a lot going on when it comes to that. And Candace, I have a picture of an airplane and the checklist. So I'll just ask you, when do people use a checklist in life? And maybe
to make sure they don't forget something, to go somewhere.
Yeah, whenever it's important. Like if it's a surgery, there's a checklist before that to make sure that all the tools are there. If you're in an airline, and I have a friend who's a pilot, and like, you know what? They've been doing it for years. They're conditioned. They are professionals, and they still use a what? Checklist. And this checklist has before starting, after starting, before takeoff, climbing, approach, landing. There's checklists after landing, parking, securing the aircraft. There's checklists for everything in an aircraft because it's too important and mistakes are too painful. I have, and we're not going through it today, I want people to know it's there. This is a communication checklist. This is what you do before you prepare. This is a 5-step process. So it's Marshall Rosenberg's 4-step nonviolent communication with an extra step: observation, story, feelings, needs, requests. If your communication is really important, it's important to have a checklist. Any comments on that one, Candace?
No, I love it. I'm really happy you have that because, I mean, like I said, this was all foreign. And so having a container, having a structure, because especially when we're in these challenging spots, it's like a spiral, and we need some sort of container to like really get to the core of it.
Yeah, and so I'm bringing up the original triangle here with the unheard, unloved, unsafe. So if you feel unheard, what's the opposite of that is you can feel HUV, heard, understood, and valued. So that's the whole idea. And if it's critical, what you want to do is have your checklist, get it out because you're triggered in your reptile brain. The next one is if you're feeling unloved, what is the answer to that? Let me switch colors here. Is when your needs go from feeling like a burden to feeling precious. And so I want to talk about a little bit about what those needs are. And the challenge is all that it takes to go from having needs to feeling needy is if your needs don't get met over enough time, you'll go to needy. All you need to do to go from just feeling needs to feeling needy, just hold your breath right now and keep holding it. About 2 minutes from now, I'll let you know that you can breathe again. And then what your body will experience is neediness. And the people who are not needy are the people who are getting their needs met. So we all have these incredibly precious needs. And the thing is, how do we make friends with our needs and with our partnered needs? So if you're feeling unloved, most likely what's happening is your needs aren't getting met. And here are the top 10 needs. So Candace, before I even go into the top 10 needs, you've heard these before. Anything you've got to say about needs?
Sex is a real need. and it needs to be acknowledged. It is often not, and it's sad.
Yeah, I love Alison Armstrong, the author, the Queen's Coach. She's been on this show. I've interviewed her. She's really amazing. If you haven't checked her out, do it on YouTube or go to her site. But Alison Armstrong says, sex isn't the icing on the cake, it's part of the cake. So I'm going to just buzz through the top 10 needs. We're not going to spend a lot of time on them because I want to cover several other quick things. But trust and certainty, like the only reason you can drive down a highway is because you feel pretty certain that another oncoming car that could be doing 60 miles an hour, it's almost guaranteed if you hit a car head on at 60 miles an hour and you're doing 60, it's probably going to be very fatal. What separates you is an agreement. That's all that separates you, is an agreement that you stay on that side of the yellow line, I'll stay on this side. Periodically, that agreement gets broken. Somebody gets drunk, somebody does something, and somebody gets killed. In relationships, when you break agreements, somebody gets hurt. So trust and certainty is one of the needs. Uncertainty and variety is another need. Feeling significant and a priority, love and connection, growth, contribution, emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, sexual intimacy, and attraction. Anything you'd like to say on that, Candace?
It's I feel like it's like a checklist, in essence, to see where things are at, like do regular relationship inventories.
And there you go. Well
Yeah.
said. You led right up to it, Candace. I have in front of them a checklist for those things so that you can go, how big of a priority? So on this side is priority. It's like, it's my number one. And then how good am I doing? So that's like it. On this side, it's kind of odd. On this side, 1 to 10, 10 is the best, 1 is the worst. This side, priority, number 1. So if certainty is number 1 for you and you're at level 6, that's not so good. So this is a checklist that you can use to figure out where you are, where you want to go. So that is the second thing. So unseen, I'm not unseen, unheard. Let me bring up the last one. Unheard, unloved, unsafe. And see, with unsafe, what happens is you go, right now, what I want to do is bring up from conflict to compassion. So the opposite of unsafe is feeling safe and held and compassionate. And what happens in relationships, if we're really afraid of conflict, what do? We end up compromising and sacrificing our needs. We'll do almost anything to avoid the conflict. And what does that do to the relationship long term? So Candace, I'm going to bounce to you on that one for a minute. I love that I hand you all the hot ones and just expect you to jump right in.
Yeah. So, because of my history, I had a lot of sexual trauma, and being sexually intimate at one time in my life was always unsafe. I was not allowed to enjoy it. And it's definitely like one of the ones that I personally have to have agreements around, and more awareness with my partner. Like I need my partners to be aware of the potential things that could trigger this level of unsafety.
Yeah.
Um,
So it sounds like for you, some of the things that create safety are boundaries. And we did a whole call on unprotected boundaries and walls. So like those are the three different levels. If you don't feel protected at all, if you don't have any conversations about it, eh, you're unprotected. If you have some conversations, it's like where there's not agreements, there's expectations.
mhm.
And so putting up boundaries and setting people up to win with you. Here's what you can expect, and here's what I need to so that I can relax and enjoy myself. So the thing that happens for people when it comes to conflicts is we have to watch out for triggering each other. And there's two kinds of conflicts. There's internal conflicts and external conflicts. And I've done a lot on other calls with this, so I'm going to let it go at that. The levels that we get triggered is the first level's alert. That's like our awareness goes up. Is there something to pay attention to? Then alarm is we're paying attention. Is there danger or not? If there is danger, we go up to the attack mode, which is where our reptile brain is, and then there's conflict. So we either shut down, or we fight, or we flee. So what we're trying to do is learn how to deal with this so that we don't get up here in this part and treat our partners as the enemy. And we're trying not to trigger each other. Otherwise, what happens is when we trigger each other, we give up on our needs, and we'll do almost anything to avoid conflict. So anything else you want to say on that one? Oh, and here, Natalie's saying the Boundaries and Walls webinar was extremely insightful. Thank you for that. It was a new level of info to me to discern between those two. Yeah, and that's part of, if I'm going to tell people how you can get all of these, the back calls, go through them. There's a Facebook group that I started that people can join. So any like closing statements, Candace, before I tell them what they can do as the next step?
You said something right before Natalie's comment that I wanted to speak into, and I can't remember what it
Yes.
was.
Okay, well, I was talking about the fight, flight, freeze. What do you do?
I remember. Okay. So I just want to say, for me, I was one of those people who froze or fawned or did nothing. And I thought that was doing something. I thought that was dealing with it. And so it's just something to really watch out for, especially with big triggers and big trauma. I can totally avoid that something is wrong because it's just too painful to face. And I think I'm facing it, or I'm doing the better thing by not facing it.
So, Candace, I'm bringing up a slide right now to tie into what you're talking about. This is the three options people have right now. There's lines going across the page, and one that goes down, it's the do nothing line. And basically, it's the hope and pray or ignore and avoid, which is sort of what you were talking about, which, because of your history, because of my history, it makes sense, but it's going to sabotage the relationship long term, and it's going to sabotage you. The second line is a do it myself line. I'm going to figure it out myself, and it's John Wayne. I'm going to figure out relationships, and that's where I was. I had spent years as a commercial fisherman. I'm rough and tumble. I'm going to figure this shit out myself. I don't need no stinking mentor to tell me what to do or how to do it, which, oh my God, was I shooting myself in the foot. So, Candace, have you ever had any of the do it myself thing?
Yeah, it's something I have to fight often. And I feel like for me, and I think it goes to, our beginning um mm, uh, thought on the evolution around femininity. Like I have a thing where I want to do things on my own. And yeah, that's great and that's wonderful. But why? Why do I have to do it alone? Why does it make me any better if I don't need help?
Well, the top line here it started with a quote from Tony Robbins when I worked for him. And he's talked about it a lot. I still look at my life before and after Tony was a turning point for me, but he talks about turning. When you get a mentor, what happens is you can turn decades into days. So rather than decades of suffering in a relationship, just spend days, get a mentor, learn and grow, get content, coaching, and community. Set yourself up to win. And here are some of the things that are available to you. I am going to go through it super fast, but this is my relationship model. A lot of you have seen it before. I show it almost every class. We go into what's your heart set, your skill set, your mindset, your relationship operating system. Candace mentioned it multiple times today. If you don't know what your operating system is, it's operating you. You're either conscious of it or unconscious of it, but it's running the show. Then you need to learn the 7 skills: communication, needs, conflict resolution, dealing with wounds, trust, dealing with differences, and creating intimacy. All of that. So if you want to move ahead, there are 3 things you can do. The first one is easy. You can get a free copy of my book, Argue Less, Love More.net. I'm going to tell you how to do that in a second. It was #1 in Amazon bestsellers in counseling, couples and family therapy, marriage, healthy relationships, and even dysfunctional relationships. If you go to Amazon right now, it's $19.97. I love it if you get it there, but I'll also give it to you for free. The second thing you can do, and Natalie talked about a previous webinar that we did about the difference between boundaries and walls. And if you join the Courageous Love Show Facebook group, you can, it's a no cost. There's about 180 or 90 people that are joined it. And all of the issues, the back videos of this are there. There's handouts there. There's a bunch of great free information. Now, I just want to be clear. There's a huge difference between information transformation. Information's not going to change your life. It's good to have. It's a start, but it's not transformation. If you want transformation, if you really want to take your relationship from wherever it is, crisis, conflict, stuck in a rut, and take it up to good or even great, one of the best things you can do that I know of, and I am biased, but I have been doing it over 25 years, get yourself a coach, a mentor, someone who can work with you. I do a breakthrough session. We spend about 15, 20 minutes together, and I look at where you are, where you want to go, if and how I can help you create a breakthrough. If I think that you would be somebody I want to work with, and I'm somebody you want to work with, we talk about that. And typically I spend 90 days with you. There's 10 sessions, and we create a breakthrough and move you up at least 1 or 2 levels. 90 days is not enough to get you totally transformed if you've been doing the same bad habits for 30 or 40 years. So here's how you can get a hold of me to get the information on how to join the Facebook group, the information on how to get a free book, or the information on how to do a breakthrough session with me. This is the exact address here. I will blow it up a little bit. It's fb.me/MSG/ Paul, Paul, .sterling.35. Now, another way to do this is you just find Paul Sterling on Facebook and message me. So those are the two ways to do that. Candace, any closing thoughts from you? And before you answer that question, what I would love is I'd love to ask everybody that's been on the call two things. Let us know what you got from it. This is not a one-way conversation, and people have been interacting, and I totally appreciate all, Michael, Letitia, Natalie, all the different people that have been commenting here. Thank you. Let us know, what did you get from today? And the second thing is, let people know, if you think this is valuable, let them know about it. They can watch the review. So closing thoughts, Candace.
Oh, goodness. I think the one big thing I want to share is if for any of you out there in relationship or not, this coaching, I mean, from what I know of you, Paul, and the coach is available. You don't have to wait till you're in a relationship. It's like the relationship we have with ourselves. That's what we're bringing to these other relationships, and these different tools and processes that Paul presents, like, really helps us to get to know and build a relationship with ourselves so that we can better relate outside.
Thank you. Yeah. So my closing thought is, it's never too early to work on and improve your relationship, but sometimes it's too late. And that is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for me when people come to get coached and they waited too long, and at that point, there's nothing I can do. So don't wait till it's too late. And if you want a remarkable relationship, get remarkable relationship skills. So that's it. And Natalie just said, I was thinking about the book today, and I appreciate your sharing that we might go to Amazon to order it. Thank you. There you go. I appreciate it. And thank you for showing up, Natalie, and your comments. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. We do the Courageous Love Show every Thursday and Sunday. This next Sunday, I've got some great guests talking about diversity, and I'm going to dive in and give all of the info about that. That's at 4:05 on Sunday afternoon. So I will get you the info. All right. Thank you, Candace.
Bye. Thank you.